Welcome back to Switch to Linux. And indeed, our Jitsi is working today, so we actually have guests on. How's it going, everybody? I'm going to turn on my light.
Snowy.
There we are. Woo-hoo. It's snowing? Not where I am. It's
we have some snow here.
27C in the van. It was probably warm enough to wear shorts today. I didn't, but I probably should have. It was supposed to thunderstorm all day, and it never did. So,
well, 25 is 55 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, but if anybody knows how to get a hold of DistroTube, I'm chilling out in his state right now. So, was not able to find any way to contact him. But anyway, I'll hanging out on the coast again for a few days. So here's some good news on the computer tech. That board worked beautifully. I feel like I can literally open up the door to show you the ocean this time, and it won't kill the computer because that video card ain't going nowhere. That amazing $50 board is spot on. It locked that card down and then on top of that, the LED lights on the motherboard actually shine and reflect through it. So it's really sweet. The downside is I think I need another monitor. This one I'm starting to get, I'm up to, yesterday I had one vertical line. I'm up to 5 now. Hopefully the monitor can survive a couple more days. There's 2 Best Buys within 100 miles. So hopefully I can find a monitor to replace these.
Yeah, but that reminds me of a monitor that I used to have 15 years ago. That it was biggest CRT screen. I think it was weighing 10 kilos or something. It was sitting on top of another, but it started having weird issues, and I used to just smack it gently on the side. And over the course of 3 or 4 months, I have to hit it harder and harder, and because the colors would turn weird. Until finally,
I remember that.
It lost 2 colors of the 3. So
I remember that with those old CRTs. Now, here's a problem with monitors if you're not paying attention to what's going on with computer monitors out there. Computer monitors, many of them are going to AC power instead of DC, which is really, really annoying. I actually was able to find 1 or 2 that in theory should be at a local Best Buy that are still DC, but hopefully I can find one. And the ones it's on sale for $150. It appears to be DC power, and it has a monitor mount in the back, which everything I need. Please be there. But I'm not leaving the beach for a couple days. Let's see. Jitsi sucks at this point. No, it doesn't suck at this point. What happened? Yates Networks is that Chromium pushed an update which bricks how Jitsi worked. There's an update on Jitsi. I have not personally had the time to update my Jitsi server. So it works just fine. I mean, none of us are having issues. I use Jitsi all the time. And I will attempt to push the updates after this weekend. I need to use the server again on Sunday for a conference. And then after that, I have a few days off. A few days where I don't need to use the Jitsi server. So if something bricks, then that's fine. But no, it's not the link. It's if you're using a modern Chromium browser, it will not work. But anyway, so with that, let's have a look at comments. Before we do that, Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing
all right. Doing good.
Tech? We were just talking about this winter just a few minutes ago. This year has been the first year for as long as I can remember that it's actually been snow on the ground for more than for a month at a time in many years. So
I don't know about
yay,
snow,
global warming.
But this beach where I'm at is entirely composed of seashells. Very exciting.
My snow did a reboot in the last 24 hours. It went up to 50 degrees yesterday, and then overnight it rained all night. And all the snow went away. I got up this morning. I could see the lawn. And then by noon, it started snowing again. And now I got about 4 or 5 inches of snow, and it's still coming down.
What's up with this weird climate? It's supposed to get cold at night, not during the day. Tech, how's it going where you're at?
It is going. It was actually quite warm, and it is where I'm at. It is getting cold during the nights, and it's getting very warm during the days. So I don't know if we're going back into spring or if Mother Nature's just having a tantrum.
I don't know. I hope it warms up soon. In about a month or so, I will be driving through your general state. So I'll let you know details when I get closer.
I was to say, hit me up, bro.
Yep. In fact, I have questions about where exactly you're at because I think you're actually very close to where the conference is I need to go to. But anyway, we'll
heard.
Let's go ahead and have a look at the comments. Jeffrey, Windows 10 knows the drivers for my Wi-Fi dongles. All 5 of them. I guess the question of user-friendly has nothing to do with the internet access, so who cares? Well, you know. Windows had to make sure that the Wi-Fi drivers all work so they can secretly get them in there. Phil, Void is super user-friendly and actual usage installers could be better. Yes, and I think you're the one that asked me to re-review Void Linux. Yes, I will do that again. Last time I tried to do it, it crashed and burned because according to the Void developers, it simply just did not work with my version of VirtualBox. So since I'm working on a new version of VirtualBox, hopefully it should work. Fedora should be much friendlier. Newbies complain about how it ties you down and won't let it install. I don't know. I think it seems fine. On Solus overall with a few minor hiccups with updates to be fairly user-friendly. Yeah, there are early days that Solus would have problems updating from the GUI, but those have been resolved for at least 3 or 4 years now. Let's see, Yogi Man. Hello. How's it going there? Evening all, Bensonese. Get up, man. I'm just a person. Well, NVIDIA has announced they are restarting GSI up again. They do not like Intel and AMD being so slow on things. Fingers crossed and prayers for my return home on the 6th. I hope that you can return home. That would be good. DeBeer is, I would say that after using Mac, there's nothing in Linux that could come close to it, but it's classed as user-friendly. I don't know. I do not find Mac user-friendly. I find the UI frustrating, but that's me. It works. It doesn't have as many bugs and crashes and stuff, but I don't find it to be super user friendly.
The good part about Mac is that it is a Unix like system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if all else fails
loosely,
in Mac,
very loosely.
Yeah.
Well, if all else fails in Mac, you can pull up the emulator and just do Linux commands. Generally works.
True enough.
Therefore, Mac is good. Raza Review is sticking with Mint and not staying here, keeping safe every time I get disappointing. Got 73 here in South Carolina. I could have worn shorts. It was cool this morning, so wore jeans. Yeah, that's why it was. Although it was still warm when I got up, but I was walking along the ocean coast today and the little mist and stuff.
Wait, who is this in South Carolina? Hold up.
Commodore Fan is in South Carolina.
Commodore Fan? I didn't realize you were in SC.
Commodore Fan, you and Tech are close.
We gotta have to chat, man.
Hey, you got it, Mark. How's it going?
I'm never listening to you again.
Why are you not listening to me again?
Thanks.
Okay. Did you finally install a non-Chromium browser?
No.
I think I'm getting close to where you're at too.
Heck engine it uses. I think it.
I don't know. After I update it, it's probably going to change. So don't get too attached to this. I don't know.
The good part is that when he finally get around to upgrade the Jitsi server, we can have background images.
Yeah.
So that should be fun.
What is the difference of AC and DC?
Because I am.
Yeah, I don't know why the monitors are going AC. Almost every one of them are now going AC. I don't know why that is happening. DC is generally easier to work with, but what they're doing basically is almost all of your monitors have an AC. You plug the AC adapter into the wall, and then you get that power block, and then the power block converts it to DC and then powers the device. They're basically putting that power block inside the board of the monitor.
Yeah.
The problem
they're integrating it with the monitor because it's cheaper to make them that way.
And that's I don't know. I don't think it is necessarily because running circuitry off of DC is a lot better, and you just have to put the simple module. Now, the problem is that I do not run AC power in the van when I don't have to, because you automatically lose, about 10% of power in the conversion from DC to AC. So I have all my monitors and such are wired into the DC batteries directly. And so I save a lot of efficiency running the monitors. And so when I get a new monitor, it has to be DC compatible. It doesn't necessarily have the same power ports I have, but it needs to at least be compatible. Go ahead, Mark.
Is my audio in sync?
It appears to be.
Can everybody hear me in
Just-
real time? Is what I'm.
Just make sure you're following us on Jitsi, not on the stream. Yes. Tech, you want to jump in?
I was gonna say, I know you'll be this way.
I'm trying to correct things.
I think Mark's a
I
little
was gonna
behind.
say,
Yeah, Mark, I think you're listening to the stream, not Jitsi. Go ahead, Tech.
I was going to say, I actually have 2 monitors I want to get rid of that are Dell monitors that are DC. I know you won't be this way for a
Dell
couple weeks or
DC.
so.
What's the size of them?
They are, I want to say they're both 21.5 inches.
1.5.
They're both 1080p, if that matters to you at all.
So it need to be 1080p. It would need to have a HDMI and a VGA connector. It needs to be now the Dell monitor I have right now that I'm replacing is odd. It's 12 volt. Most monitors are 19. But
Okay.
I'm just gonna.
I'll have to check on these.
Yeah.
One of them is DVI and VGA, and I think the other is HDMI and VGA. But I'll check on them for you. Sorry to throw off the stream with that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's a possibility. Maybe I might just grab one or both when I pass through anyway, in case I have future issues because they're becoming hard to find. I don't know. Let's see. Yes, new sockets are going to be AC controlled largely by the motherboard. Well, these are monitors, not anything else. So if I use Mint, it's Mint DE. Vertical line sounds like a mouse
Mint
problem.
DE.
Get a cat. Yeah, you know. No, it is definitely. It's not like a refresh rate or a bad cable. It is legitimately on the monitor. I pulled all resources, looked everything. I actually disassembled the whole monitor yesterday to check if it was a cable or something, and it's. I don't know if it's on the LCD screen itself or if it's maybe the patch cable to it, but it keeps getting worse, and that means that the whole thing is going to crash and burn sometime soon. So all right, let's see. Mobi are going 12 volt only. I could get it.
Speaking of AC and DC, I watched the issue came up in one of the QI, one of the recent QI episodes that I watched. The AC that is currently powering the world came about because over long distances, you can have a longer line span from the without building another power station than the DC can. So that and that's why there is all this conversion happening inside the devices and whatnot.
How to make friends with users. Don't invite vampires like Mozilla into your house. 10-year-old Sonny Vio, Ants who passed away, would be a good distro to swap onto it. A 10-year-old Vio, MX Linux, Linux Mint, XFCE, Linux Lite. Those are good ones. MX Linux is the one I'd go with right now. The Ubuntu base is starting to wear thin on me. I gotta say, the Ubuntu
Me too.
base is like,
I have a laptop. I just put MX Linux on it Monday, and I wouldn't say MX Linux is for the newbie user. It is got a lot of tools in it, and you do have to put aside some time. The MX, they make an excellent manual. You go through the manual, go through the stuff in your computer and get familiar with it, so you know what all these extra tools that they give you do. Once you learn what all the tools do, it's a one-click repair job for anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Tom, it's been
Oh, he froze.
so far behind.
I think because you're watching the stream.
Yeah, your audio
you can't
is
watch
messing up.
the stream. You gotta mute the stream and watch Jitsi. Yep.
I almost wonder if it's an upload issue, like a latency problem out where you are. I wonder if you cut your video, Mark, if that would help.
Yeah, it's worth trying. Yeah. Wouldn't touch anything that is Ubuntu as a base. Yeah, AV Linux just went from straight Debian to being based on MX Linux on the latest release, which is pretty cool. Because AV Linux was always pretty cool, but being based now on MX means it's going to be a lot more user-friendly. So let's go ahead and get that into use as the jumping point and talk about what makes a user-friendly distro and should we even care. Selby, let's start with you. What makes a user-friendly distro? And I understand you have a story about Debian.
Yeah, user-friendly often means that it should be easy to do and often obvious how you should do the various tasks. My Linux route started by a magazine that I found in a computer store in a gas station, and it was easy to install, and everything worked for a few days until I could. It was incompatible with my system and whatnot, but it was easy to understand. And then I moved on to Core Linux, and Red Hat. All was easy to install, and how you should do things was obvious. And then I got a new computer, and everyone said that Debian was the thing that you should install. So I tried that, and I downloaded all 7 CD ISOs of Debian 3.0 release candidate 1. I didn't know what the release candidate was, but it was the latest, so I used that. Mm-hmm. And it was the installer is the reason that I didn't use Debian for many years. Because it asked me 20 questions before I gave up. It asked me questions like, what kind of main board did I have? And I had a vague idea, so it didn't pre-select what you think it was. You had to provide. You had to select everything.
Are you talking about the net installer?
No, remember this is 20 years ago. The old Debian, the text-based Debian installer still is that way.
For my time.
Yeah. So and it asked what kind of VGA card I had, and I had a vague idea. How much RAM did the VGA card have? I had no idea. And what the chipset was the VGA card, and so on and so forth. And about 20 questions, I came to the that this is crap. It has my firm belief is that the system, the installer needs to figure this out by itself. Even Windows 95 could figure this out. And then I went with Mandrake that I had a CD of. So
there you go.
Making it easy to making it hard to install is not a user friendly. Even though once it is installed, it might be user friendly, but then it was lost.
And Dan, you're on raw Debian now, right?
Yes, I'm on Debian 11. I used the net installer. Before you use the net installer, you got to fish around their website and stuff like that and find the firmware page. Okay. And download the firmware ISO and load it onto a separate USB, because when you're installing with the net installer, you are not getting non-free contribute main. You're getting Debian, and you're not getting any of the non-free stuff. So you have to put the non-free stuff in. And the installer, it's the new Debian net installer is similar to a Calamares or Ubiquity or whatever, other installers out there. It asks you the same questions and have you do the same partition chunk and everything. It gets to a point where it asks you if you have a firmware, if you have additional firmware, stick in your USB key, something like that right here, right now, and then it'll get the firmware off of that and put it in for you. But it doesn't come with the Debian download. But when it's all said and done, I got when you get towards the end, it asks you what desktop you want. You got KDE, you got Mate, you got Cinnamon, XFCE, GNOME. Tons of choices. You can install more than one, because Debian, if you get just the Cinnamon one, you don't get no real tools with it. You don't get a PDF reader or a picture viewer or any of that stuff. However, if you download both Mate and Cinnamon, you get the additional tools you'd otherwise miss. And then you'd have that stuff which would load up in Cinnamon if you just want to use Cinnamon, and forget about ever looking at the Mate, because you select your desktop right when you log in. There's a little icon up at the top if you want to switch it. But other than that, it's that easy now.
I sit on the board with, or I used to. He is not in the board, but the one who made the current Debian installer was made because of the Debian EDU project that was started in 2001 in Norway, and the installer his vision for the installer was that his Christendom teacher in university should manage to install this system, because this person needed help installing a video player on his TV, and because the default Debian installer 20 years ago asked 200 questions, and that was the default installer.
It's not like that no more. It's just it still looks kind of dated, but it'll ask you about the same amount of questions as a Calamari's installer would.
I just installed the 64-bit Raspberry Pi OS today to look at it. It actually really looks polished. It looks like it definitely looks more modern than the old version did last time I looked at it. So
one thing about Debian installs is when you get to the end and you want to use it, there is no sudo setup. You have to use su and go to the suitors file and add your name to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this last week, a few days ago, in the Mageia development list, there was a link posted. I think it was the Register, I'm not sure, that had an article about the descendants of Mandrake. Back when I was trying to install Debian, Mandrake was the user-friendly distro to use back in the day. And if you install Open Manjiva or Rosa Labs Linux or Mageia, or even there is another one that I forget the name of. They still use the same tools that was made back in the day that are still maintained, and they are the focus on it should be easy for the user to do what they want, be it having only free software system, or if because you're asked in the as part of the installer if you want to use the non-free repo with packages, and you can uncheck it.
That's something Debian needs to at least have an option for. I mean, I get why they don't, but it'd be good to have the ability to have the non-free. So if you're new and you're not familiar with Debian, by default Debian only uses open source packages, drivers, things like that. But you have the option to add the non-free, which is going to give you some proprietary stuff, basically make it work better. You can easily enable it in the repositories in the terminal, but it's not something they give you the option to do. Mark, did you?
They also have available there are ISOs out there that you can download that are like already pre-built with everything in them, but they're not 100% raw Debian install. They're contributor builds.
Yeah, you can find those as well. Mark, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, as far as and start, this aggravates me. With the installer, you're talking about new user.
Well, I mean, mostly moving beyond the installers, though.
That's good.
I mean, I think most Linux distributions outside of a few oddities are going to be fairly easy to install. But what makes a distribution user-friendly? We boot into it. We want to get to work. What's going to make it user-friendly?
Or on installers, probably the most thorough, best installer I've used yet is the MX one. They have their own installer, And when you go to the page, install something, on the left side, there's a whole description of everything that you're about to do in that portion of the installer. It is really cool, how they got it set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the MX installer is amazing, and you can choose your time zones. It's you choose your username in there before while it's doing the installation, save a little bit of time, not a ton, but a little bit of time. And there's just so many other options in there that are like, do you want to intend to print things? You can enable or disable the print server on install on MX Linux, which is good.
Mark.
I'm sorry. I don't think Nuke needs to. Realistically, if we want to bring more users over from Windows and Mac to Linux, I don't feel like a user should know what a partition scheme is, or they're not going to know. They should not be expected to know. It needs to have an audit, like many modern Ubuntu distros do, for lack of, I'm not crazy about Ubuntu either, but yeah, I mean, as far as setting up the partitions and everything, it really needs to be point and click, next, automatic, next, next.
That's
all
true.
I would say.
Tech, you have any thoughts on what makes a distro user friendly? Then we'll go into the comments here because we got
way beyond the installer.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The installation is secondary, in my opinion, because most Linux distributions, if you're fairly competent, you can install it. But once we get it installed, what's going to be a user-friendly distro?
I was going to say, I think that there's Mark's kind of starting to head towards the right answer, but I think that we need to kind of draw a line here. Is that, does Linux have a quote unquote goal? Now, we as FOSS enthusiasts might want to get people off Windows and Mac OS and other proprietary systems, but I don't know if Linux itself has that explicit goal. But that's a whole other conversation. As far as user friendliness goes, I think that Mark is right in that, for all of the, we'll say, valid criticisms of Apple, one thing Apple does try to get right is that you shouldn't have to be a computer technician to use a computer. So they try to get it all kind of behind the scenes and try to automate the micromanaging of the underpinnings of the OS. And I think that that's a good thing. I think that it should still be available to the end user if they want to go that route and they want to run the risk of blowing up their computer. But I don't think that that should be put front and center to them. And I think that there does need to be some standardization, but that conflicts with the idea of the freedom of choice that comes to Linux. My Linux experiment recently did a video on that, saying that Linux is not about choice. I don't know that I agree with everything he had to say in that video, but he proposes an interesting idea that I think everybody should go watch it at the very least. For my part of it, working in the enterprise and setting up in my new job, I'm getting to set up Linux servers and kind of design our engineering baseline for them.
Cool.
I can tell you that it's got to be intuitive enough that somebody who is accustomed to Windows can jump on board fairly quickly. It doesn't have to replicate Windows. It doesn't have to be Linux Mint or somebody in here I think mentioned Lindos from the early 90s or back when 56K modems were all the rage. But something like that where it's got to be familiar enough that they can use LibreOffice instead of Microsoft Office, and they'll understand what they're looking at in fairly short order.
Yeah, be like, okay, I'm opening up Word. You're using it for 3 months before somebody points out that this isn't actually Microsoft Word, right?
Right. Yeah. It's got to be that good because and there's plenty of criticisms to level at Microsoft as well. But one thing that they generally get right, and we'll step aside from Windows 8 in this comment, they do generally get user experience right because they do a ton of research, and I mean a ton of research that goes into UI development. So for, again, a lot of criticisms for Microsoft that are fair, but I think that's one area that they do really well. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's anything like that for any Linux distro, to say nothing about the larger Linux community. So I think that it's ease of use and its intuitiveness, if you will, which is a hard thing because while you don't like Mac OS's UI, I love Mac OS's UI, and I think that it's very intuitive. And so it's a left brain, right brain kind of thing, I guess, maybe. I don't know what it is. But so there's a lot of pieces that go into it. If I may, there's actually a friend of ours, Tom, who actually shared his thoughts on this. And it's just a few sentences, if I can read it to you, as to what he said.
Sure.
I think it was right on the nose. He says, a user-friendly distro is one that not only makes Linux usable, but is attractive enough for a Windows user to look at it and think, I want that, not just I can live with that. And the best example of this is Zorin OS. Ironically, the antithesis of a user-friendly distro, in my opinion, is Elementary OS. Even though their mission is to be user-friendly, and I think they are user-friendly in terms of user experience or user interface, when it actually comes to usability, the average user is probably going to have to use the terminal more on Elementary than any other distro just because Elementary's App Center only shows quote-unquote curated apps. And even safe FOSS apps are shown as not safe, which ironically makes Elementary look anti-FOSS. Not to mention, they're basically stripped of the distro of customization options and in general. Zorin, on the other hand, is friendly to executables. It has an APT and Flatpak and Snap in their software store out of the box and gives users an ample amount of customized UI options and a clean tool. That being said, I don't hate Elementary. I think it's a fantastic distro UI-wise. I'm only saying this strictly from a quote-unquote end-user point of view. I don't know that I agree with him about the store having apt, Flatpak, and Snap. I don't know if having all three of those in one store is a great idea without having a standard. I think it can be confusing for a lot of folks. But I think he's got it right on the money.
Yeah, and tell him sorry I missed him this week. I actually ran out of internet data.
Yeah, sure. No, I'll holler at him.
I know you're talking about. So yeah, let him know I did really intend on meeting this week. It was actually written on my calendar, but I actually ran out of data, and so it's like, and we ran into some other issues too. And then of course it's
all right. I got that landline that's got unlimited data.
All right, but hold on. Before that, I want to comment a couple things there. First and foremost, no, Elementary sucks. I mean, I'm just getting that out of the way.
I agree with you, but yes, I really don't like it either. Yeah, I've never had luck with it.
I think that the one that probably does it best is Manjaro, because in Manjaro, you can turn on or turn off Snap and Flatpak. It's extraordinarily easy. If you want snaps and you don't care about proprietary distribution, you can toggle a button, and when you do a search for packages, snaps will show up right alongside. And if you are like, snaps are from the devil, you can turn that thing off and not see them. You can turn on Flatpaks. I think that Manjaro might get it best because it gives you an easy option for all of them. And no matter what, like Peppermint tried to do that in the latest version, but they completely flopped because they're like, here's a link to Snaps. Click it and it opens a web page for Snaps, which is not useful for a typical person. And so, yeah, I agree that user-friendly, I would agree with that general assessment of user-friendly. Yeah, I that's the thing. And that's what made me excited about Linux, is I got excited about using a computer again for the computer's sake, not for the tools application it gave me. And that's a useful thing because it was easy to use for me. At the same time, I could play with it and have fun with it and customize it how I like. That being said, Linux Mint 20.3 completely broke my custom theme, and I'm salty about that. But I should have it resolved.
While talking about friendliness, I had a thought. I have not seen a distro yet. When you open it up, somewhere in the welcome screen, you can open up a part of the welcome screen that describes what a snap pack is, what a flat pack is, what an app image is, what's getting distro, your stuff from a distro, explaining all these new things, because these things are all starting to come into play within the last 4 or 5 years. And you've got fragmentation right there and where you get your packages from.
Yeah. So Linux always, they complain that Linux is fragmented. So what do? We fragmented the software distribution. Great.
Fight fire with fire, that's all.
Yeah, and another aspect of Dan hinted to it. Another aspect of being user friendly, especially when you're because most new users are not going to install Linux or do it alone. They're either going to have someone do it for them, or they are going to have someone guide them and what they should choose and so on. So many will, several distros will give you the ability to do an OEM install, so that you have the experience like you're getting a brand new computers running Windows, and the first thing is a welcome screen where you can choose your username and so on. And but once you are logged into your user, many distros come with a welcome screen of what that guides you into some common tasks that you might want to do, at least for the first run. And you can disable the welcome screen at a later time, like configure repositories and what they are, and configure the hardware or the how do you get to the control panel, and if there are more than one, and so on. So in Mageia and I think also Mint and a few of those have this some sort of welcome screen as the first time login. So.
Yeah, looking at some of the comments here, I have been reading all these. I don't think we're going to get to them all, but number one, a few things out of the box. Yeah, making sure the internet works out of the box, particularly with the fact that most computers now are coming without a Ethernet port. Making sure that your wireless works out of the box. And usually that's good. Usually that's working. There's still a few holdouts, but for the most part, I think that's working. Another comment I saw a few times is making sure you know what apps are. Like nobody knows what cheese is unless you're already familiar with either being a cheese connoisseur or you're already familiar with webcam applications and things like that. I tend to agree with that. There's times I install a distribution, I look at like, what is this? Like parole, what is parole? I avoid parole. Bad experiences in that past. But
that was my experience too. When I first started Linux, I had an idea what things I wanted, but I didn't know what they were called, and I continuously had to do DuckDuckGo searches to find the best best image viewer, music players.
There's
stuff like that.
And using DuckDuckGo before it existed.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few applications I've written down to replace some other software that I've never seen before. And so I'm excited to dive in and download some of these. I was going to download one of them the other day, but that 100 megabyte file was going to take me about an hour and a half to download on my running out of internet supply. So I was like, all right, we'll wait for later. Now I have a bunch of distros I want to test. I'm like, all right, I got to find a coffee shop on Saturday and just download a bunch of distros. I'm going to connect like 3 computers to 3 different public Wi-Fis in different places and just start downloading distros to all of them, consolidate them down.
And if people don't, because there are some people who really don't have an idea of what kind of problems a new user would have. One way to research that is to watch the YouTube channel of the OS the first timer, where a teenager have his mom test all these kinds of distros and old operating systems and so on, and have her do a simple task like open a document, write some lines in a document in a text editor and so on.
I used to watch that. I like that channel, but it I got tired of it. It got old.
But what it shows is that in some operating systems, it's easier than others to figure out how to do those tasks. Like how do you set the clock? How do you configure the time zone if you need to? And
that's cool. North Point would like to know, Hillary, what is your go-to distro for email servers? If anybody happens to know the answer to that, we knew, wasn't it Ubuntu or something?
If you for servers, I often opt for
it's the old political joke, because Hillary Clinton was hunting running an email server, illegal email server in her closet. And did we ever know what distro that was?
Yeah, it was Microsoft Exchange 2010.
Was it Microsoft? I thought it was a Linux server.
Ooh, wow.
No, I thought it was a Linux server. I swear she bleach bit it, or is bleach bit also available for Windows?
I was like, wasn't it? It was using Google services. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe, I don't know.
If I recall.
Apparently, the information is as fragmented as Linux is.
Yeah.
In any
Linux
case,
and Android. There we go.
But in any case, their server ran in a closet in her house, so it was a home server that she was running, which is awesome.
Yeah,
and that is also an example of even installing a server is easy these days.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, I spun one up. I spun up a media server last night with pretty much no internet. I mean, I got internet back this morning because I'm like, well, what can I do that is in my workflow of things that I need to do that does not require a lot of bandwidth? SSHing into somebody else's computer and using their data connections. Got it.
Installing an operating system these days is so easy that even government official is able to do it.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see. Commercials for Linux. I'm not sure I've seen a commercial for Linux. Back in the day, AutoZone's.
Yeah, I was about to say, not anytime recently.
Yeah. Must have been a while ago. Yeah.
And that's one thing he nailed that if you don't market it, is if it's not in plain view of the normies, plain view, I'm thinking of Haas's idea of bringing a mainstream distro. A user-friendly distro.
For people who don't use Linux as normies.
Yeah, but that's also
that's not true. We do have a marketer in the Linux realm, and that's Chrome. And I have an article here that Chrome is going to start making their operating system available for PCs.
Chrome
PCs
is
and
open
Macs.
source like Android is open source. Come on,
I mean it's a stepping stone, but it's not what I would call this is a jump for Linux.
But that's also a point that
I'll put the article in the.
Yeah, but that's also a point that needs in this discussion. It's been hinted a few times in the discussion.
But yeah, I do think visibility.
One of the issues is that how do we make people switch from Windows to Linux?
You guys can take a look at that and read that on your spare time.
It's on my weekly news roundup for the week.
Yeah, in many distributions, they really don't, and many of the distributions, they really don't care if people switch from Windows because it's not made for the Windows user. It is made for they have a need. And they are, and many of the distributions started, but someone had a need that wasn't satisfied by the existing solution. So they made their own thing, and it became big, and it became an organization behind it, and so on. And they have a vision that it should be easier, but it's not necessarily for the Windows user. Because there is some task that if you are a gamer, an avid gamer, and you want to play the popular games, you're not going to be using Linux. And
I do. I'm insulted.
Well, not if you're going to.
I got like 50 games that run on Linux just fine, and they're modern games too. Yeah. Some of them are AAA titles.
Are they? Okay, that's the big question. Yeah, it's
Cyberpunk 2077 runs great on Linux. Horizon Zero Dawn's a AAA game. It runs on Steam just fine. It'll run on.
I'll have to get my friend's list of games that he runs. Although I think his reason he dual boots Linux and Windows because he plays online with some other guys that are solidly committed to Windows.
Yeah, there are some things and some kinks that that. Here when it comes to games, I've never gamed on Windows, so I don't know that experience. I only know all the hell it takes to get them to run on Linux, and it's getting better. It's getting less than a problem to get games to start up. Even in Lutris, you can run Zero Dawn in Lutris, but the only thing is you get no controller. With Steam, if you run it through the Steam client, it gives you the controller.
Mitchell came through with the information from Hillary. Had a Dell PowerEdge R620 running a Windows Server 2008, 2 Dell network switches, 2 Fortinet firewalls. The R620 hosted 4 virtual Microsoft Exchange mail servers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can we just point out 2 things there? The Server 2008 and Fortinet. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, why is somebody with her knowledge running Windows?
Fortnite.
Don't you know that Windows can spy on that? Use Linux, Hillary.
Fortinet.
Then no one
The
would
government was spying on itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, take a note out of Snowden's playbook.
Yeah.
But at least she have the knowledge to run her own mail server and not rely on a third party.
I don't think she ran it herself.
I think she had an aide do it for her.
She had some lackey that set it up, and then she shot him in the back of the
They're
head.
probably,
that still counts
getting
as
the
running
redneck techs or Geek Squad out there.
Yeah, but that still counts as doing it yourself because it was running in her home.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On that definition.
And
yes,
that was
I
one of the
agree.
problems. And the FBI and the government, when they are having some investigations, they couldn't just access her home in order to check what was on the servers. They had to go to some rounds with the courts before they were allowed to, because it was her home. If it was on like a normal email server in a data center, they could just go to the data center and just say, give me. No, they couldn't this time. So that's one reason to run your own service at home. There are some protections in place that they can't just access your home. So
I use a hosted server for my help desk. I was using support system for my help desk software, but I switched over to a software called BusyBench, and it's made by like an independent developer. It's a really good software for help desk, but I'm going to be doing a Jitsi server either on Linode, but I use Cloudamo currently, and that is a really good one for hosted. But my Cloudamo, I think I pay like $11 and change a month for a VPS, which is really cheap for what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a pretty good price for VPS.
Excellent. So.
Yeah.
Speaking of Linode, Akamai has gotten hold of Linode, so that should be fun.
I'm worried. We can talk about that later, but I'm worried.
Yeah, I'm watching that, and I'm going, do I need a escape plan? Because I have too much invested.
DigitalOcean's promo still going on.
You know, I still actually have a DigitalOcean affiliate. I don't ever push it, but it might be something I start investigating and split my services across a few different places. Because I need to figure out more about that company. Did some preliminary research going, I don't know, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, they're primarily a CDN. My issue is in just partnering with Google and Amazon. I mean, they have, and they also have in their terms of service, they have a Meta Analytics, the parent company of Facebook.
Oh
so
my
that
God.
just scares the crap out of me.
At one point in time, all of Facebook's CDNs were through them, but they stopped them. Apple and a couple other companies stopped working with them. It was almost like 8 years ago or something.
Well, funny story, Apple's private relay with their iCloud service, it goes through Akamai's CDN. So they still have an enterprise or strategic relationship, I should say.
Okay. Yeah,
I've read probably.
I want to look more into that because that does concern me a little bit.
But then again, Apple is a big enough actor that they can have a custom agreement to not have some kind of analytics on traffic to their cloud thing. So
sure.
Mm-hmm. I think it's coming close to 8, so let's do a final wrap up here, and then we'll be on my Christian stream tonight. You guys might be interested in. We're moving towards this direction, kind of analyzing what the craziness of the world is and what that might have to do with the future faith. So our topic on the Christian stream tonight is the New World Order needs slaves.
Ooh.
And so if you are interested in hearing about the New World Order and slaves, we'll be over on Our Walk in Christ. We're still trying to get that boost up over 1,000 subscribers so we can cross-post over to Library. If we cross 1,000 subscribers, they will port the entire channel over, which is
They've been grooming some slaves lately. They've got a few already that they could pick from.
Yeah.
The 3 to 5 names that absolutely fit that bill.
Yeah. All right. So, Mark, give us your final thoughts on user-friendly distros.
My final thought is that you have to put yourself in the position of a new user, and forget that you know things about Linux and your competition. When you're trying to help somebody find a user-friendly distro, you can't assume that they know half of what you. Most users just need plain language. They need to be able to click through things in the GUI. It needs to be very visual based and very straightforward.
But also have the option for
make it
the
more
advanced
visible,
user to do something too.
Yeah.
Tech,
for the
final
advanced
thoughts?
users.
For the enterprise, I would say it's actually not about the front end user experience; it's about stability. So your winning choices there are Red Hat and Debian, and I also think Ubuntu Server with their LTS releases is actually pretty solid as well.
Yeah.
From a more of an end user perspective, Zorin has a lot of love. I haven't personally used Zorin, but that's a popular one out there. And I have actually fallen in love with Budgie, and I think that. I think Budgie is a fantastic desktop environment, but intuitiveness, I think, more than anything else, is really
I really wanted to run Budgie on the Raspberry Pi, but the Pi just doesn't support it well yet. So.
Yeah, it's a little on the heavy side. I've got a dual core hyper threaded AMD laptop here with 8 gigs of RAM, and it chugs a little bit sometimes. So I get that. I think Budgie's a little heavier than they let on.
Yeah, a little bit.
So maybe that's Ubuntu.
Dan, final thoughts on user friendliness on your end?
User friendliest. If you're going to a new user, the new user should have a desktop that's quite similar to what they're used to. And it should be functional, and it shouldn't be something that pesters them with updates every day. There's lots of distros out there with different desktops. Like if somebody is used to using tablets or something like that, maybe they would be comfortable something like GNOME. On the other hand, a hardcore Windows user would want something more like XFCE, perhaps, or Cinnamon as having a panel at the bottom. Yeah. But in the end, it's all got to work, and it's got to work flawless. And like Tech said, Red Hat and Debian's about as stable as you're going to get. I have doubts about Ubuntu lately, the way that, because I got a laptop that's got Ubuntu Mate on it, and I use it to watch movies at night.
Yeah, it's not working super well.
So, what are your final thoughts?
You're in the middle of watching a really good TV series on Netflix, and you're into right the middle of the best spot, and all of a sudden the Ubuntu updater pops up. You got updates,
Yeah, just what I want.
Yeah, just what I want.
I was having that issue with Pop OS today too. Like, really, Pop? I just updated. You're giving me another update now? All right.
I get them almost every day. It's like I get more days with them than without them.
Yeah.
So it should be easy to do the things that you want. So if you want user friendliness and bling bling and so on, you should be able to get that. But also, like you said earlier, it should not be a hindrance to the advanced users who really want to use the terminal. Users like me, I at any given time I have 5 terminals up and at any given time, and that's the default number of terminals.
Elementary needs to right there.
So Linus Torvalds said 11 years ago when he ranted about GNOME that because they took away features because it was confusing to the new users, meaning that the advanced users couldn't use it. So don't it should be solicited to both types of users.
Yeah.
And the drivers is the one issue that has been touted by the Linux community for the last 20 years, that on Linux that is actually easy. And in the last couple of years, Windows has come along, and you no longer, or it's rare that you actually have to hunt the internet for a driver for your card and so on.
Yeah.
Windows now can usually find the driver on its own because they aggregate drivers on their own service.
So they're all all systems are becoming easier now. We just have a different group of problems now than we had in the past.
Yeah.
All right.
My opinion is
built into the kernel these days.
Linux has never been better. It really hasn't. It's come a long ways.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff that we got today in Linux is way better than we had in the last decade.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's come a long way in the technical ability, but just as we were talking about fragmentation earlier, just as there's been as many positives, I think there's also a lot of negatives in terms of the user experience. I think there's been a lot of missteps, we'll say.
Ubuntu is getting worse and worse, and that's dragging down a lot of distros.
Yes, it's bad.
It's weird, but anyway, we're gonna wrap up here. Next week, what does open mean? So from Tech gave us that idea, so we'll be discussing that next week. If you're interested in the Christian type stuff, the New World Order needs slaves. We'll be discussing that on the Christian channel in 1 hour from now. And tomorrow, 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is the weekly news roundup. So we will see you guys then. Thanks for hanging out, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Live long and prosper.